We go 336. Brian Howell, someone we got to know quite a bit back when a lot of the percolating, when Texas and OU and the SEC and the Big 12 reacted with 4 schools, and then they had to react again because of USC and UCLA and trying to stabilize everything. And the Pac-12 was looking around going, what about us? He joins us on 365 Sports with Craig and David Smoak. And Brian, thank you very much for your time. So when the schedule came out earlier this week, was there anything in particular, a couple of bullet points from either the Colorado football program or you when you saw it released?
Yeah, I mean, the first couple of things were, some rivalries, some old rivalries. You get to start and end with some old rivalries with Baylor and Oklahoma State and Kansas, things like that. I thought it was a good thing, too, that in the conference there's no back-to-back road trips for the Buffs, and so I think that's a big deal for them as well.
Brian, what has kind of the offseason been like thus far for Deion and company? I don't know if he's commented on the schedule, given that it was just released yesterday, but what's been sort of the theme thus far and kind of the direction that they're headed after year number 1?
Yeah, his only comment, he was on Undisputed yesterday. He doesn't talk to us, but he was on Undisputed yesterday. But I think they're excited about what they're doing. I mean, they've really upgraded the roster, in my opinion, through the transfer portal. Only signed 6 high school kids, but they're really good. And then also, some really good transfer they've gotten. So I think that they're really excited about this roster and what they've got going into this next season.
We knew that they were going to have some transition, not as much as the year before, but they had to fill the offensive line. And I watched your feed, and it was one guy after another, whether transfer portal or players coming in that were high school players. Could they have done it any better than they did in the end?
No, it was actually kind of funny because there was an article that came out in The Athletic where they quoted anonymous coaches, and it was early December, and one of the coaches literally said, there's no way in blank you're going to find a new offensive line, and they found one in 3 days about 2 weeks later. So it was like 5 or 6 transfers, plus Jordan Seaton, the number 1 offensive line recruit in the country, committed, and that was all within about a 3-day period, and you really couldn't have done it better. Now, you maybe could have gotten, you could argue you could have gotten better offensive linemen than what they got. But, I mean, every transfer offensive lineman they've got was a starter at their FBS program this last year. And so I think that's an upgrade of what they got last year.
Brian, obviously, you mentioned there having some old rivals in the Big 12. There's not going to be a Texas. They had some very interesting games with Colorado and Oklahoma, obviously. But who would you say, kind of brushing the dust off the old Big 12, glossary there, who did you consider, or who do Buffs fans maybe get most excited about potentially when it comes to the older Big 12 schools?
Well, I know some guys that played during those years, and obviously Nebraska was a big one. They're not here anymore. And Oklahoma was a big one. But, Kansas State is one that a lot of old Buffs are excited about. There was some, knockdown, drag-out games with the Wildcats over the years. I think they're excited about that one. And there were some really good games with Oklahoma State and, Baylor as well. And, Texas Tech, they never really played them like annually. They played them a few times during the Big 12 years. But I think it's mostly those 3, kind of, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, Baylor, Kansas as well, but Kansas was not really good at football back then, and I think it'll be a better rivalry now.
So, we had all the summer of no one knew, and then all of a sudden at the end of the summer, pop, everything happens. Colorado was the ones that said, hey, we're going to put our you-know-what out there. We're going first, and they did, and then eventually Arizona, Utah, and Arizona State. Is there still a lot of talk about the future, or is it right now more about right now?
It's more about right now. And, Colorado does have its eye towards long term. And that's part of what this move is positioning themselves to be, have a seat at the table at the next round of realignment, which we know is about 5-6 years away. But they're really focused on the Big 12 and they're excited to be there. And they think that being here is going to set them up for, the future. And whether that's, the Big 12 expands and becomes better or, whether it's somewhere else. But more of their focus is on the Big 12. I mean, they got enough to worry about there, and there's a lot of rebranding that has to be done. Just talking with somebody the other day, the amount of Pac-12 logos are just scattered around the campus that have got to be painted over, is insane. So there's a lot of rebranding stuff that has to happen. So I think they're pretty focused on right now.
Yeah, but it's a fun treasure hunter, like a Where's Waldo type of game to find all the Pac-12 logos. So of the four coming in, obviously Colorado doesn't play itself, but they won't play Arizona State here in year number one. Is there any substantial kind of feel either with Utah or Arizona? Is that a game that is exciting to have carried over from the Pac-12? Would you consider much history there? How would you describe Colorado, Arizona, and Utah?
Yeah, it's funny because this will be I can't remember if it's fourth or fifth, a different conference that CU and Utah have been in together just over the years. They've moved conferences a lot. But and the Pac-12 tried to make that the rivalry. That was always the rivalry weekend game, but it never felt like a rivalry. And part of it is that Utah has just kind of dominated it. So there's never really that animosity, but they've played each other so much over the years that there is that. Arizona, I think, because both programs have sort of been on some same trajectories at times, I think there's some animosity there, but that's even more of a basketball thing than football. But they've played some really good football games. And so I think there is some carryover there. But it's not like they're bitter rivals or anything like that.
So I know basketball season's going on in Colorado. That's not something that wasn't a part of what they the main reason anybody morphed into what we have now is coming up to be the Big 12. But the women have had a great start. Where is the basketball program when it comes to men's basketball as they enter the Big 12, which is a battering ram?
Yeah, they're a pretty good program right now. They're not having the type of season people thought they might have. I mean, they've got Cody Williams, who some project as the number one pick in the draft this year, if he leaves, if he's one and done. A couple other potential NBA picks. And they're not having that dominant year that people thought they might have, but they're still one of the better teams in the Pac-12. But the Pac-12 is not nearly as good as what the Big 12 is in men's basketball. And so they would probably be, even with this roster, which will be different next year, they're probably a middle of the pack Big 12 team, but they're a pretty good basketball team. And then on the women's side, that's a program that could come in and compete for a Big 12 title next year.
Well, they opened up. Weren't they the ones that opened up with a win against defending champion LSU?
Yeah, they beat LSU in the opener, and they're sitting at number 6 in the country right now. So, and they've got a legitimate shot to be, a Final Four type of team this year.
So what does Deion have at the top of the to-do list right now? Defensive coordinator, is that right?
Yeah, and we're still waiting on that one. There's a lot of impatient fans right now. And, again, on Undisputed, a couple days ago, Deion said, well, that could happen here in the next couple of days or maybe even today. Well, here we are a couple of days later. It still hasn't happened yet. So we're still waiting on that one and have been waiting for a while. It sounds like it's going to be someone from the NFL ranks because he's all the hints he's been dropping, but we're still waiting on that one. That's kind of the next thing.
Brian, thank you. We will be back in touch when spring drills starts rolling along and also concludes sometime this spring. Brian Howell, the Boulder Daily Camera, Colorado's reaction to the schedule that came out earlier this week. One of the KU